FBI director arrested by racist police at airport. Police immediately beg and kneel. The man in the suit. The city of Chicago was winding down as dusk painted the sky in muted purples and grays. At O'Hare International Airport, a steady stream of travelers poured through the terminals, dragging wheeled suitcases, sipping overpriced coffee, and jostling for space in the rush to get home, to meetings, to someone they missed. Among them, a tall, sharply dressed black man stepped off a United Airlines flight from Washington, D.C. He moved with the quiet precision of someone who had spent his life making decisions that mattered. His name was Jonathan Ellison, and while no one in the terminal knew it, he was the director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Jonathan wasn't flashy. His navy blue suit was tailored, but not loud, his gray hair neatly trimmed. He carried a slim leather briefcase and a small shoulder bag, avoiding checked luggage, less hassle, less risk. He always traveled this way when attending highly classified meetings abroad. No entourage, no detail, just him slipping in and out of places like a man used to staying unnoticed. But tonight he wouldn't go unnoticed. Just beyond Gate B12, 2 officers from the Chicago Police Department stood on patrol. Officer Charles Dempsey, a seasoned white cop with a permanent scowl etched into his leathery face, had 27 years on the force and a track record riddled with complaints that had somehow never stuck. Next to him, Officer Patrick Rowe, younger, hungrier, and less certain of his instincts, watched his partner with the reverence of someone who hadn't yet learned when to question authority. They were bored, restless. It was a long shift, and the terminal lights had begun to feel like interrogation lamps when a vague message came across Dempsey's radio. Possible suspicious subject, male, black, dark clothing, alone, moving through Gate B12. Dempsey grinned like a man whose night had just gotten interesting. "Rowe," Dempsey said, nodding toward Jonathan as he exited the gate. Rowe hesitated. "He's just walking." "Fits the description," Dempsey said, adjusting his belt. "Let's say hello." They approached fast, no introductions, no courtesy. "Hey, sir." "Stop right there," Dempsey barked. Jonathan turned, his expression calm, controlled. "Can I help you?" Rowe lingered behind, unsure. Dempsey stepped in close enough to invade personal space. "You match a report," he said flatly. "Suspicious individual near Gate B12. Jonathan raised an eyebrow. What exactly was suspicious? Dempsey ignored the question. "Let me see some ID." "I'm happy to comply," Jonathan said, reaching into his jacket with slow, deliberate movements. "But under what reasonable suspicion are you detaining me?" The legal phrasing irritated Dempsey. "Oh, we've got a real smart one," he muttered. He snatched the Virginia driver's license from Jonathan's hand. "Jonathan Ellison, huh? What are you doing in Chicago all dressed up? You don't look like you're here for a vacation." Jonathan's jaw tensed. "Business," he said plainly. Rowe tried to contribute, parroting the tone of his partner. "Business? You a lawyer or something?" "Something," Jonathan replied. He didn't elaborate. Dempsey's grin widened. "Or maybe you're moving something illegal through here." "Got that look. Real smooth operator." Jonathan's patience strained. "You have my ID. There's no cause to continue this." Dempsey stepped closer. "You think you're above this?" "Above us." Jonathan's voice dropped, calm and firm. "I think I know my rights. You're harassing a citizen without probable cause." The word harassing made Dempsey snap. "Who the hell do you think you are?" he growled, grabbing Jonathan's arm. "Don't touch me," Jonathan warned, stepping back. Rowe lunged. In an instant, both officers were on him. The scuffle was brief, violent, and unfair. Jonathan never threw a punch. He didn't need to. But he resisted enough to delay them. Passers-by stopped. Phones came out. Gasps filled the terminal. And then came the metallic clink of handcuffs. 2 white officers had just thrown a black man in a suit to the floor of a major American airport. They didn't know who he was, not yet. Dempsey stood over him, panting. "You're going to learn respect the hard way." Jonathan's chest heaved, but not from exertion, from something deeper, something heavier. Then he looked up, locked eyes with the officer, and said one sentence: "I'm Jonathan Ellison, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigation." Time stopped. Dempsey blinked. "You're what?" The change was immediate and grotesque. Dempsey's bravado evaporated. Rose stammered, his face ashen. Dempsey fumbled with the cuffs as if they burned him. "Oh God," Roe whispered. "We didn't know. Please, sir, we didn't know." Dempsey bent down like he might cry. "Director Ellison, it was a mistake. Please, we're so sorry." Jonathan stood slowly, his shoulders straight despite the throbbing in his wrists. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't need to. The silence alone shattered them. A voice rang out. "What's going on here?" Lieutenant David Marston, a middle-aged white officer with command presence and a clean record, had just arrived. Two other officers flanked him. Dempsey and Rowe jumped to attention, stammering nonsense. Marston turned to Jonathan. "Sir, I apologize." He stopped, realization dawning. "Are you?" "I'm Director Ellison," Jonathan said, "and I've just been detained, assaulted, and handcuffed by two of your officers based on race and prejudice." Marston's face hardened. "Officers Dempsey, Rowe, surrender your weapons and badges now." The airport watched as the two officers were escorted out in disgrace. Phones recorded everything, and the storm was only beginning. The next day, the headlines broke. FBI director illegally detained at O'Hare by CPD officers. Video footage circulated. News anchors dissected every second. Social media exploded. Hashtags trended worldwide. What followed was swift and brutal. The Department of Justice launched an investigation. CPD Internal Affairs began an audit. The body cam footage was damning. There was no ambiguity. It showed the targeting, the disrespect, the escalation, and the gut-wrenching moment of realization. Dempsey and Rowe were fired within days. But Jonathan wasn't finished. At his request, both officers were federally charged with deprivation of rights under color of law, a felony offense. The trial was public and painful. Dempsey's record was unsealed. Dozens of prior complaints, buried under bureaucracy, rose. Blind obedience was exposed as cowardice. Jonathan took the stand with clarity and force, not for revenge, but to set a precedent. His testimony was powerful. He didn't dramatize. He didn't beg. He simply told the truth, what it meant to be judged not for who you are but for what you look like. The jury deliberated for less than a day. Guilty on all counts. The judge handed down 6-year federal sentences for both former officers. Justice had spoken. But Jonathan felt no triumph. Weeks later, he sat in his office at FBI headquarters in D.C., staring out the window as traffic buzzed down Pennsylvania Avenue. He had won the battle, but he kept asking himself, what if I weren't the FBI director? What if I were just another black man traveling for work? Would the footage still matter? Would anyone believe me? Would I still be free? He knew the answer. And that's what haunted him. Then, he got up from his chair and went back to work. Because the system he had spent a lifetime defending still had cracks, deep ones. And if his pain could expose them, then maybe someone else, someone without a title, might walk safer. In the aftermath, Jonathan established a task force within the FBI dedicated to investigating civil rights violations and police misconduct. He pushed for federal legislation to increase accountability for law enforcement and to protect citizens from racial profiling. He used his platform to speak out against injustice, not with anger, but with a quiet, unwavering resolve. Years later, Jonathan Ellison retired from the FBI, leaving behind a legacy of integrity and courage. The Ellison reforms, as they came to be known, had a profound impact on law enforcement practices nationwide. While the fight for equality was far from over, his actions had undeniably moved the needle. He proved that even in the face of blatant racism and abuse of power, one person, armed with truth and unwavering resolve, could spark a change that echoed far beyond a single airport terminal. The story of his arrest became a touchstone, a reminder that true justice demands accountability and that silence in the face of injustice is never an option.